I'm addicted to these cherries. I'm addicted to the sweetness. And then I measure it and I'm like, wait a second, 6 cherries is not an overabundance.
Could not leave the house without having a square of chocolate. And that's where people are like, it's just a square of chocolate. What's the big deal? I'm like, no, I want to know, why can't I leave the house without having the chocolate?
Look at the big picture. Are you really doing this much harm?
So you don't have to label yourself a sugar addict. That's just who I am, and that's how I'll be for the rest of my life. No.
Words matter.
Yeah, words matter.
Welcome to the Hot Takes and Hard Truths podcast, where we believe in unfiltered health, healing with real food, and unapologetic freedom that can only be achieved through the salvation of Jesus Christ. Your hosts, Jen and Nora, are close friends who found each other online despite the constant noise within the healthy living social media space. Their passion for natural health and Jesus, and their penchant to lean into the hard topics of the day, led them to want to share their thoughts and ideas with others who are also in search for meaning and answers. Please welcome your hosts, Jen and Nora.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Hot Takes, Hard Truths. Today, we wanted to dive into what seemed to be a next step after that carb episode we talked about, how carbs aren't the devil. Jumping into sugar addiction and food addiction and that whole realm.
Hi, everyone. So I have what I thought, and I guess what prompted this was I am constantly telling Jen, and I've mentioned it on here, I have a sugar addiction. Well, is it truly a sugar addiction? Is it our bodies craving something? Is it my body telling me something? Is it this high cortisol, or I guess the flatlining or whatnot? We went into a little bit of the science on our episode that's about to be released. But could there be a root cause to why we are craving certain foods? So I always think I overeat, and with my bariatric history, that's proven to be false. I can't really overeat certain foods. And in my mind, if I am going back to a bag of, let's say, fruit, cherries, strawberries, blueberries, if I'm going back and back, in my mind, I'm binging. Well, I had texted you earlier this week. I said, oh my gosh, I had 2 full cups of cherries and I didn't even measure them out. And then I plugged them into my carb manager app and I said, Jiminy Cricket, that's 50 grams of carbs right there for an afternoon snack. Yes, I had some raw milk with that. So let's add another 12 grams of carbs for an 8-ounce glass of raw milk. And I'm at over 60 grams of carbs for an afternoon snack. How is this possible? And so, what was it? 3 days later, I had a few more cherries after a challenging day of work, and I said, okay, I just had 6 cherries. I'm full, a whopping 6. And I measured them, and it was half a cup, far from 2 full cups. And so I plugged that in the carb manager, and lo and behold, I had 12 grams of carbs. And I didn't push myself, but I was going back to the bag. I was taking 1 cherry out of at a time, but I went back to that bag 6 times. So in my head, I'm binging, I'm overeating, I'm addicted to these cherries, I'm addicted to the sweetness. And then I measure it and I'm like, wait a second, 6 cherries is not an overabundance. That's probably not even a full serving size of cherries. And so I'm wondering back, how often am I doing that? Why am I beating myself up, especially if this is a natural sugar and there's far worse options out there?
That's interesting. So it's kind of like, because I know if we were to read the actual definition of sugar addiction, like if there was, I don't know if there's an official, like, there's no DSM diagnosis, whatever, but it's basically the pattern of like your response to it all, where there's like an uncontrollable desire to continually consume the sugary foods or the glucose filled foods or fructose filled food, whatever it is, no matter what the consequences will be, right? And it's
Yep.
that repetitive behavior. So in your mind, the fact you were going back to the bag made you feel like you were binging, irregardless of the actual amount that you were consuming.
Correct. This whole mental thing. of just beating myself up over food, which has been a lifelong battle. And then in my mind, I'm like, how different is this from going back to a bag of cookies, which is what I used to do prior to 2020? But cherries, cookies,
Huge difference.
why is the mentality still the same? And how can we rewire that? That's
I have a question for you too. Now that you bring up the cookies and cherries things, I don't think I've ever had the same thing that I could technically label a sugar addiction. I mean, ultra processed foods that are chemically made to be addictive, obviously that. So for you, because there's a lot of people in the camp that say, well, I can't have fruit because I have a sugar addiction. And I know
yes,
you've labeled yourself that. So
did
how do
at the beginning.
yeah, how do you stop? It's one serving. You went in the bag 6 times. You had 6 cherries. What made you stop? Did you feel full or did you just go, oh my gosh, I need to stop now? What did that look like for you?
I felt satisfied, to be honest.
Mm,
I wanted a little something. I knew I had a really, and I hate to say this, and see, now we're getting to the root cause. I'm looking back. When do I have these cherries? After a really cruddy day at work.
hmm
And I'm not reaching for potato chips. Not that we even have those in the house. I'm not reaching for a processed item, but instead, in my mind, this was a safe landing zone.
hmm Do you feel like it was safe? Like afterwards, did you have any? I feel like I'm doing a coaching session.
And this
Did
is how
you
sometimes our conversations go.
totally? Do you feel like you had any negative repercussions after having the cherries?
No, I don't. I didn't feel bloated. I didn't feel stuffed. I enjoyed those cherries and I didn't feel any repercussions from it, except so the only guilt I did feel, and I've started noticing this, and I don't know if this is a mind over matter thing, if this is just a stress response. My CGM has started to spike when I have any sugar, any carbs. So that's the biggest
How much does it
that's
spike? Because that's always that's another one of those mindset things where I have seen people, and this might not be the case, but I just want to voice it out there. I have seen people where they're like, oh my gosh, I have a spike, and then they show me their CGM and it's like 10 points. So what's yours
so
look
since
like?
we we're being fully honest on here, my CGM goes up 100 points.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I'm at around 100, 115, and then I'm spiking to 250.
Did you confirm it with the blood glucose as well? Because sometimes CGMs are faulty.
So I'm finding this CGM, and this is where how much do we need to trust our intuition, how our bodies are feeling, and how much do we need to outsource that? Am I going nuts over this CGM over this past 2 weeks? I think I have been. How is that affecting the food I'm eating? Because I believe in your, not to go off on a tangent, but this is what we do. A lot of how your body responds to food is how you're thinking about this food as you're
Hmm
intaking it. So am I stressing about this and then my body's having this stress response? And so to answer your question, it's been all over the place with my blood. So I started measuring with my Keto Mojo
Yeah.
and it was anywhere from 10 to 40 point difference.
Okay.
So how accurate is this CGM? I have no idea.
Yeah. We do know you had a spike. How long did
Yes,
it take to come back to baseline?
it was very fast.
So
Um,
like under an hour.
within 20 minutes,
Oh, okay.
30
Did you
tops.
feel any like hypoglycemic reactions or anything? So if you didn't wear the
Nothing.
CGM, you would have been like, "Hey, this is working out for me."
And that's what I'm starting to realize. I had no increased heart rate, which usually if I'm going to be honest, yes, when I have a cookie, my heart rate goes through the roof. I start to sweat. My stomach gets all knotted and gnarly, and I feel this response from the cookie. But ever since I've been starting to play with fruits, vegetables, milk, even my smoothies, zero increased heart rate, zero bloating. no symptoms. So no, if I wasn't wearing this monitor, I would have no realization that my blood sugar went up and came down.
Which goes to show it's not just about the carbs, right? And that was our
Correct.
point in the last episode, and, I recorded one on my channel as well, is that it just because they have that thing in common doesn't mean that's the cause, right?
Yeah.
So there's something else, which there's a lot of things about the cookie that's causing those issues, the heart rate and all those negative issues. And that's one of the things we just want to drive home is that I'm going to repeat this till I am dead in the face, that not all carbs are created equal, first of all, and second of all, it's not just about the macronutrients, right? There's so much more to food than that. I wonder if, okay, so just like going keto, when we first went keto and carnivore and all that stuff, there's an adaptation phase, right?
Okay.
Before we can like produce the ketones and things. I tend to wonder if it's the same thing the other way around, where when you start bringing in the whole foods, especially if you've been doing keto and carnivore a long time, that there's an adaptation phase for your body to relearn how to use the glucose. I don't know. I'm researching and I'm learning myself, but for me, it's kind of like a little bit of time to do that. And obviously not like going binging on 100 grams of carbs right away. Like it's just slow. It's a very slow progress to get back to that part, as well as any root cause issues that there's insulin, right? And I think we were just talking about that before we started recording, was what was the next step that you're looking at?
So I think focusing first off stress. I'm having other problems that I'm not going to go into that are dealing with stress. My body's showing signs of it now. And cutting back with work and prioritizing certain things like preparing fermented foods to go with my meat and veggies. And I heard that you need to have a small amount, like a tablespoonful of fermented foods with each meal
Mm.
to help your body aid with digestion. And that's especially good for people that have chronic stress, which leads to poor gut microbiome. And I know I haven't been the best. When I was doing carnivore off and on, I would do carnivore for 5 days, not necessarily in a row. And I would have 2 days of probably screwing around. And I'm talking screwing around like a snack, and that was, but it wasn't whole foods.
Yeah,
So
I know. It's just
it
funny
was,
that you said it.
I know. I you know me. So I'm wondering now that I am prioritizing, I'm being more focused about it. Is this just an adjustment period?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I mean, it could
It's
be.
we're doing it mentally and physically, the entire adjustment. So that's having to rewire your brain. Like you said, not all carbs are bad, but in my brain, I have said, yes, they are, but my body is saying differently. Hello, my sleep needs to be better. I had great sleep last night. My weight. And now let me ask you this. So, for a woman, how much should our weight fluctuate throughout the month? 3 pounds? 1 pound?
I would say up to 5 at the most. 3,
Okay.
like 1 to 3 pounds, I think would be normal.
Okay. And so that's another thing I beat myself up over. I have not been weighing myself every day, but yes, my weight fluctuates, but it's never fluctuated more than 3 pounds, even with adding in my raw milk, my cherries,
Mhm.
these strawberries and blueberries. At tops, it's been 3 pounds. So despite the stress, despite the blood sugar spikes, so I
Mm.
don't know. Where am I going with all of this? Are we really binging? Do we really have a sugar addiction? And how can we rewire from this? It's a frustrating vicious cycle that, words matter. And how can we stop beating ourselves up? Especially if we're not truly binging.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, like, I think you were touching upon it in the beginning where if someone is eliminating carbohydrates from their diet for a long,
Mhm.
extended period of time. And then they go and have an apple, let's say, and then they start binging or binging. We'll say
Yeah.
whatever, because it seems to be a very subjective term. They go and they have more and then more, and then they have that guilt that they had more. What if that is their body saying, I actually need this to feel safe and to feel comfortable, and we need this aspect, because this is a little bit of a side tangent, and maybe we'll talk about this in another video, but one of the things that I'm coming to realize, and I feel so dumb that I didn't realize this earlier, but this is the brainwashing that happened in this community, is that we've always been taught we are either fat burners or glucose burners, but that is 100% fallacy. We are always burning glucose. There are parts of our bodies that only run on glucose, red blood cells, for example. But there's part that only run on that. So we're always running, like burning at least some glucose. And then the fat's the one where it's like, my understanding, it can be one way or another. So the fact that we need that. Now, yes, if you eliminate carbs, your body can do gluconeogenesis. It can create
I was just gonna bring that up. That's the word I've been hearing about for the past 5 years, gluconeogenesis. That's why your body doesn't need carbs or sugar,
right.
because it performs that act.
But it's a very taxing act.
Stress? Stresses your
Stress,
body?
yeah, yeah. Well, and like some people, it might be okay, but that's the minority. Most of us have many stresses in our life. And again, I always say this, it's not just the mental stress, it's the physical stress, it's the environmental stress, it's like just day-to-day stress. It might be childhood trauma stress that we are still holding in our body. There's so many things. And the gluconeogenesis, like, to me, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why not just eat an apple or one of the carbs that don't trigger you, right? Because there are all a lot of people that eliminate carbohydrates, they're already having carbs in the form of dairy, in the form of heavy whipping cream and eggs and all that. So yes, you can get it from there, but there's the micronutrient aspect as well that we've talked about. I feel like I'm repeating myself all over again as to justify why it's important. Doesn't mean you need to have 150 grams of carbs, but you start small. But the point is, where I was getting at is that what if it's a safety mechanism that your body's telling you need it, and it's not necessarily your lizard brain or whatever, you know?
So now that I've verbal vomited all of my little secrets, let's turn this on you. Have you ever had any issues with an addiction? Let's say, I know some people crave salt. You're not this huge sugar person, I know, but have you ever had a binging issue or an addiction, a craving problem in your past prior to keto, carnivore?
I think for me, it's very similar to you in the sense of I wouldn't say I've binged. I don't think I've ever had that case, especially with, when I had to look up, like, so what is considered a binge in a sense? And it talks about like when you consume more than you intend, or if you have like a desire that does not go away, or
The guilt?
the guilt, yes, you think about it all the time, it just won't leave your brain. You continue to try to stop, and it just nothing works for you. You get withdrawal symptoms, like all of those things play a role in that. One of the things that used to happen to me a lot, and I remember people saying that's not a big deal, and I was like, no, but it is. There's something else. Every time I left the house, like going, we would always walk through the door to the garage to leave. Every single time I had to grab a piece of chocolate. So it was
Oh.
like I could not leave the house without having a square of chocolate. And that's where people are like, it's just a square of chocolate. What's the big deal? I'm like, no, I want to know, why can't I leave the house without having the chocolate? Part of it, yes, is what you were just pointing at, like this mindset. It became this habit of I just have to do it. I just have to. But if I left without it, I felt anxious. The other half of it was I was extremely low carb, very close to carnivore, more ketovore, and I had a very stressful period in my life at that time with my little guy, trying to get him to therapies and things like that. I had courses I was trying to finish up. I had taken care of my mom. Like I had a lot going on and I wasn't helping to blunt that cortisol spike. So I think that was my body innately telling me, please give me some carbs because I'm stressed and I need some fuel. And this gluconeogenesis isn't cutting it anymore for the cortisol. Like I need legit glucose to run from the bear that is perceived, right? So that was one of mine. And then when I did start introducing carbs last year in the sense of some fruits, I would just do like oranges or
Okay.
apples. It was very like those little cuties one, the small. I do like more of
Yes.
those. Obviously berries out, but I was starting with fruit and I wasn't noticing anything negative either. It was I didn't have
Awesome.
CGM on, but I was doing it after my meal. And then that just led me to curiosity. What else can I handle? And some people say, oh, that's your lizard brain making excuses so you can have all the carbs. No, I legit want to know what my body can handle, right? And I've been putting that to the test recently, like 100, over 100. One day I had 180 grams of carbs. So I have a CGM on now. And it's kind of hard to tell if I'm having any weight issues or not because it's only been a month. A part of me feels like I have pushed the limit just a little too much and I need to
Okay.
go down to like 100 for now.
Maybe too fast? Could it have been too
I
fast
think
that you
so.
pushed yourself instead of easing into it?
Yeah, I was easing originally and I was doing like some days were 50 grams, some days were 30, some were 60, 70, like if I had to estimate. But estimating, as we discussed in the beginning, is not always accurate. That's why
Nope, it could definitely be overestimating.
for sure. So I do think I went up too fast too soon, especially being keto for so long. One of the things that has blown my mind is when you are extremely low carb, I'm talking like under 50 grams, under 30 grams, 0 grams of carbs, for too long, you actually drive more insulin resistance in your body. And that got me angry. It got me frustrated to learn because I'm like, why didn't anyone mention this? Like, you see a fasting insulin of 5 and you go, great, it's doing wonderful. But the bottom line is, if you bring carbs back in, that's going to go back to what it was. And that doesn't, you're not insulin sensitive if you can't handle carbs physiologically, like in your body. So, people think they're insulin sensitive because their insulin's good, but they're not challenging it with the carbs. So, that definition is not proper.
So I wonder if that's what's going on with me. I know
Mhm.
that stress is the root of all my evils, as broken record, but could it be that I have withheld for so long, despite those 2 days or whatnot, that I would relax a little bit?
Mhm.
But I think for the past solid 5 years, I mean, I've been severely low carb. Looking back, on average, I'd get 20 grams or less.
Mhm. Yeah,
And then the
that's what I
carbs
was
that I would
mentioning.
throw in,
Sorry, go ahead.
the the carbs that I would throw in were not good.
Right.
And I wasn't being mindful about it. So that would it's neat to see how my body's responding, and I am I gonna continue wearing the CGM? Probably not until stress has calmed down
Yeah.
because I obsess. I obsess over my aura ring. I obsess over all these little things that are tracking things, which seems to cause me more stress. So I think I'm just going to, it was very eye opening, like I mentioned a couple episodes ago, going for that walk after having fruit,
Mhm.
which starting August 7th, I will be able to do that every single day.
Yay.
And, I can have my fruit and my milk, and then I can immediately go walk in my grass, which has been very beneficial. I'm pulling a Jen over here in Virginia. So you walk in your backyard when it's too hot. And now I've taken a page out of your book and I'm walking my side yard.
That's awesome.
That's because I don't want to throw on shoes and go for a walk. It's just too hot. So I'm going where the sun isn't shining. And I've been noticing even a 5-minute walk will make my blood sugar just go way not way down, but it goes back into the normal
Yeah.
range.
Yeah, because you're utilizing it. You
It's just
can't have like a
awesome.
buttload of carbs and sit on your butt and watch Netflix. That doesn't work that way.
And then so then you mentioned a buttload of carbs. Well, what exactly is a buttload? And is that's going to differ from person to person. So let's say tops, I'm intaking 50 grams of carbs a day right now.
Yeah, that's
That's
great.
really in the grand scheme of things, I looked it up. Yes, ChatGPT. Standard American diet, how many carbs does a normal American intake? And that's 200 to 300 grams of processed carbs a day.
I would think it would be more than that.
I would too.
That's not very much.
I thought it was way more than that, but I guess conservatively, we can say 300.
That's very conservative because you think about what the foods, I mean, okay, when I did the math for me, I took like a normal when I was younger. I did this on Carb Manager. I was like, what was my typical breakfast, all that stuff, and it was 400 to 500 grams of processed food. Yeah, because
Okay, so
I would have three Eggos, those Eggos that don't fill you up
oh,
whatsoever,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I filled every single square with Aunt Jemima syrup. So you got to look at that, and then I was still hungry, so I would have one or two packets
Yep,
of Pop Tarts. Those
yep.
are like 50 grams each of those
Each
foil wrap
square?
things. Like, no,
Okay.
I think for two of them.
For 2 in the foil, okay.
Yeah. And then I would grab something else from the fridge. I would do Ovaltine. I didn't have any meat
Juice.
or fat. What?
Would you maybe do I juice was big for me,
Oh, soda.
that
No, soda was
o
mine.
okay, I had that Tropicana stuff and all that
Oh, we
fruit
did have
juice and
that, but I didn't
Spartans.
like it. It was too tart for me. But my mom would buy it. It was, but yeah, that and then a sandwich for lunch with, some kind of chips or fruit snack
Yep,
or
yep.
whatever. And then my Indian grandmother, when she lived with us, she would make the most delicious Indian desserts. So gulab jamun and kaju katli and things like that, packed with sugar. Those gulab jamuns are like little orange brown sugary balls.
Oh,
They're
lord.
like 30 to 40 grams for just one, and I would down them.
What?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Oh, yeah, they have very sweet desserts. But yeah, like
So
for
it
me,
all adds up.
it does. And I didn't have my protein till dinner, which was like ground beef or chicken or whatever when
Ex
my mom would make dinner.
Likewise, a
Yeah.
casserole of some sort
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
chicken with a starch and a vegetable.
So
Yeah.
I forgot how we got on this tangent, but I think that the standard American diet's definitely more than 2 to 300 grams. 100%.
Okay, so we have to, yeah, put it into Carb Manager. That was just a quick research because I was trying to make myself feel better over these 50 grams of
Yeah.
carbs, which why do I even need to do that? It's not processed food. But yeah, that's very eye-opening. So probably the regular American is getting 500 plus grams of carbs. So yeah, that makes sense. Under McDonald's for a standard meal at a fast food place with the fries, the cheeseburger, and a soda, it's about 1,200 calories just for this one meal.
And
No dessert.
how many grams of carbs? It was like 112 or
It's about 160 grams of carbs for just the sandwich, the fries, and a soda.
and then that doesn't include going to Starbucks for their foo-foo coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's over 500
Cappuccino?
grams for sure
Yeah,
of
easy.
ultra-processed stuff.
But so in the grand scheme of things, when
That's what it
we are thinking that we're binging, when we're thinking we have this sugar addiction, and I know that a lot of us coming from the keto world, the carnivore world, or even a vegetarian world, I don't know how many carbs are necessarily in a full fruit and veggie diet,
a lot.
but even then, it's going to be a healthier option than the processed foods. And is 100 grams of carbs binging? Is
No.
that when they're coming from whole foods? Do we need to beat ourselves up? And I guess that's the whole point of this episode today. I've been beating myself up like crazy, and Jen is like, Nora, look at the big picture. Are you really doing this much harm? And when I measured things out, and this is where, for people like me, and if you have quote unquote addiction problem or you're beating yourself up, measure your food out.
Mhm.
Really see how much you're intaking, and you might be surprised, and you might even pat yourself on the back and say, "Oh, I'm really not doing badly. I'm
Right.
not doing poorly." And then get your body moving after you eat those whole foods.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned, Jen, earlier on another episode, this cup that you can buy to eat out of that it
Oh,
measures
yeah.
your food.
That's right.
So we
It's a
will
bowl.
definitely a bowl. Okay.
Yeah. And it tells you, like, there's like I think there's lines on the bowl that shows like 1 cup, 1.5 kind of thing. So you can like measure stuff in there. And I think there's
Nice.
cups and stuff too, but yeah, I'll find that. And I think we're going to put it on the link in a different episode, but I'll find that and then we'll put it in the show notes as well.
And look at, not that I'm trying to tell people to obsess or whatnot, but I played with something the other day. I looked at my yogurt, and it's the organic yogurt from Mom's Organic Market, and I looked at the serving size. And then I looked at my organic granola that I got from the fresh market, all whole ingredients. I looked at that serving size and I put them together. I did a hard workout the other morning. And so I allowed myself, the granola
Mhm.
and yogurt because I try to mix the two if I have it for breakfast. Jen, I couldn't even eat half the serving size.
Really?
I was full for half the serving because it was a large amount. I think it was for the yogurt, it was almost a cup,
Oh,
but then you throw another cup of
yeah.
granola with that.
Yeah.
And I even omitted the fruit on this one because I looked at the bowl and I was like, Jiminy Cricket, there's no way I'm going to eat all this. I left half of it. So even looking at the serving size,
Yeah.
still wasn't intaking much.
No. Yeah, I think mine's usually like 2/3 of a cup is a serving size. But then when I add prime protein and the granola and everything, it is very filling. And sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't even eat dinner. I'm so full. Which I don't want to be at that point. I want to be able to have my 3 meals a day. I want to be able to have breakfast, lunch, dinner, because I know well, that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, so basic summary, what we're saying is that like you might not be actually a sugar addict. It might be
Yes.
more because that has to do with like your dopamine receptors, neurochemical imbalances, all those kind of things, gut brain axis cause the sugar addiction aspect of it. But maybe the sugar addiction is more something like our cases where it's just a habit you need to break. Or like
Yes.
literally my thing having a chocolate going out the door, like that was just a habit and I don't do that anymore. How did I break it? I got rid of the chocolate and I didn't put it in that room. It was now in
Not
my
buying
room
it.
next to my desk, which I'm not at very often. So sometimes I would have that, but I would do something like grab my water. I put some flavored water drops in there, things like that, where I was still getting something. And I added the carbs. That I think was the ultimate one where now I never think about it. I'm never thinking of food as I'm walking out the door. So maybe it's that. Maybe your blood sugar's still unstable, which can happen on carnivore. You can have, like I said, if you're carnivore too long, you become more insulin resistant. It could be nutrient deficiencies, things like magnesium. Maybe your digestion's off, so you're not getting the amino acids. Poor sleep, high stress. That's another big one if you're not addressing that. The emotional trauma, gut dysbiosis, all those kind of things can lead you to that sugar addiction. So you don't have to label yourself a sugar addict. That's just who I am, and that's how I'll be for the rest of my life. No, no,
Words matter.
yeah, words matter. And there are people, I will admit, there are people, you look at like these shows, the 600-pound, whatever, Biggest Loser, all that stuff. Yeah, there are people that they could not stop. Their satiety signal shut off. But again, why? Like, why is
Why?
it shut
What's
off?
the root?
That's not how you were created. Something happened to make that, and that needs to be undone. So yeah, that's that was my rant to end to end the episode, I guess. But yeah,
So
just
give yourself some grace
yeah.
and start asking the hard questions, which is what I've been doing. Start weighing your food. Start looking at the sample sizes. Start tracking things. That has been the biggest eye opener, especially if they are whole foods.
For sure. This has been awesome. Yeah, if you guys have liked this, definitely like, comment, subscribe, tell us like what's your experience been with any sugar addiction, food addiction kind of
Please.
situation. We'd love to hear what helped you, what didn't help. Was carnivore the solve all for you? Were you able to bring stuff back in? Let's just start a conversation. I've been loving talking to people in the comments so far. I do the best of my ability, and yeah, I look forward to talking to you guys again.
Alrighty.